Karin?
Commander?
Huh, you didn't respond to any of my letters.
I'm sorry.
No, you aren't.
No, I'm not, but I'm back.
Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages,
I miss Monster Hunter World. Okay, maybe I let that one out of the bag real quickly. It's been hitting me a lot recently, okay? I can't explain the exact timing of it, but I think it's something to do with finishing the Stories 2 main story and having all of that Monster Hunter energy left over, wanting to move it around to something else. One of the coolest parts of this series is that there's so many different games, and you can go back to each of them. And unlike some game series that are out there, there's actually a good goddamn reason to go back to each and every one of the Monster Hunter games. The same thing that causes people to be a bit apprehensive when a new Monster Hunter game is shown is what makes them nearly timelessly appreciable for fans of the series. Every game is unique in some way. The combat, the world, the general themes, it changes so much from game to game. All while you get to experience monsters that you are familiar with and love from the other games, and the base general hunting loop that you love as well. What I'm saying is differences between each generation of Monster Hunter makes these generations extremely replayable, and if anything, it incites the urge to do so because the new games are often such departures from their predecessors. Maybe you dearly miss underwater monsters all of a sudden, or the Apex system, not the new Apex system, the old Apex system, or your favorite version of Longsword was in 2nd gen before they started adding all those extra fluff mechanics on top of the perfect sword. There is something to draw anyone who enjoys Monster Hunter into each and every one of the Monster Hunter games, and in a way it is sort of timeless. Having now concluded the story of Stories 2, I have a serious urge to get some more action game mainline series hunting going, and to my surprise, the specific game that I have the urge to play is Monster Hunter World.
You're one of those.
Okay, hear me out here for a second. This is not about one Monster Hunter game being better than another. This is simply me coming to an understanding of my feelings of the series and wanting to talk about it a bit with you all. It's an open discussion based entirely on personal biases, but my own bias sort of surprised me. For months, I've been saying that I think one day Rise will be my favorite Monster Hunter game, you know, once the G-Rank expansion happens, but we'll have to wait for that to see if I do feel that way. The reason for that is the combat. I'm absolutely in love with the combat of Monster Hunter Rise. The wire bug mechanics are very fun. Switch skills are something that I honestly hope stays in the series forever in some capacity, and for whatever reason, just the sheer pace of the hunts in Rise, the way that Wirefall makes getting hit feel like less of a big mistake, less of a big stopping point. The wyvern riding mechanic I thought was really fun. The game is just fun. That's it. The combat is insanely fun. I enjoy fighting every moment that I am fighting, and that's not the Monster Hunter game that I have the urge to go play right now. In my opinion, and with my video gaming preferences, Monster Hunter Rise has the most sheerly enjoyable, purely enjoyable combat that I have experienced in the entire series. And it's not the game that my immediate urge is to play. Maybe it's partially because I know that Rise will have a G-Rank expansion, so I don't feel a huge rush to go running back to it full blast, you know? I know there'll be more added and I'll have good reason to play it loads again, so I'll just keep with my real low gear playing it once every couple of weeks right now. But right now, I really miss Monster Hunter World. Oh, well, go play it then, you might be saying. Well, I can't. I didn't say I miss Iceborne, did I? I said I miss World. Like, pre-expansion base Monster Hunter World. The Guiding Lands was great after all the updates, at least in the patches, but the initial impression that it left was just sort of above average. The DLC cycle of Iceborne was great, but definitely not as interesting or as constant feeling as base World, at least to me. And the Clutch Claw, well, the Clutch Claw made every single fight have one more aspect that was exactly the same, and gave every monster an identical animation that sort of took away from their uniqueness to see each and every one just do the same pose, begging you to claw them. Please do it. Base World feels to me like it just had this perfect energy going on in comparison. No Clutch Claw, frequent updates, even the arch-tempered monsters that were only pure damage increases still came with armor sets that shifted the meta a bit each time they came out. Call of Taroth was a crazy experience to be a part of. Goddamn Behemoth. Do you guys remember Behemoth? I have straight up flashbacks of Behemoth sometimes, and I sort of look fondly upon those now. Like, in the moment, it felt insane and painful, and I did not want to continue. I just wanted him to sort of fall over and the hunt to be over. And now I look back on it and think, man, that sure was a unique, fun Monster Hunter moment. It's extremely hard for me to pinpoint why it's this game in particular that does this for me. I'm sure a large part of it is that this was my introduction to the series as a whole, and that's the thing that we talk about all the time when we talk about who likes what games the most, but no one really particularly explains why that truly matters. Back then, when I first started, I had no clue what I was doing. I was a dual blades main who didn't understand combos until after I'd killed Xeno'jiiva, and compared to the way that I view the Monster Hunter games now, it was a very freeing experience. Not knowing the best way to play lets you play however you find fun. It's a strange statement, but I think one that is also very true. In order to overcome the hardest challenges in the Monster Hunter series, you have to really learn to understand your hunter, your movement, your weapon, and the creature that you are fighting. But simply by developing that knowledge and those skills that bond with the game, you lose your naivety. You lose your innocence, so to say, at a Monster Hunter standpoint. Gaining information changes your viewpoint forever, and you can't really flip the switch back. So in a lot of ways, my first Monster Hunter experience was also my least constricted, and I think that goes for a lot of people. The one that I had the least expectations for going in, and the most open of minds continuing on with. I was absolutely blown away by the idea that something like Gerardus had legs.
How do you tell when this thing starts limping?
He doesn't have a long, slippery
Oh, it does have legs!
tongue. Of course it has legs.
I miss being so unknowledgeable about the series that something as small as that could freak me out. Every new monster was an unbelievable moment. I did not know what to expect, and as a result, I firmly believe it's impossible to go in with less expectations for a Monster Hunter game than your first Monster Hunter game. And going in with no idea of what to expect is precisely the best way to experience a Monster Hunter game. Past this, I think the 5th gen hit a specifically unique note as well, at least specifically world. All of the quality of life changes and the high fidelity graphics, as well as the quality of the character creator, honestly, brought in a load of new players who had never been to the series before, or had at least never been able to commit to an earlier game in the series, and it did that at the perfect time, because even to this day, to this point where I can look back with my knowledge of the series and be able to identify the things that I liked and why, now that I have the context of the rest of the series, there's one thing that I think Monster Hunter World has done better than every other single Monster Hunter game, and that one thing is the reason that I have this massive urge to play it once again. The world. It's just so goddamn alive. Let's put this in the smallest terms possible. One zone, the first zone that you go into, Ancient Forest Zone 1. In this zone is a herd of Aptonoth, not 1 or 2 or 3 Aptonoth, a full-on herd of Aptonoth right out of a wildlife documentary. If you wait, what happens but great Jagras wandering in to eat one of them, displaying their role in the food chain together and establishing great Jagras as their predator. If you follow him, he then regurgitates the chewed up Aptonoth and spits it up to feed his young. But back to Zone 1, Aptonoth, when in this zone, can also be burnt to death, for example, and eaten by an Anjanath, or also quite similarly treated by a Rathalos. And that's just a couple of examples. In the very first zone, this game feels alive, everything interacts, it's not even just the Aptonoth, there's all the endemic life running around, and it makes everything feel so vibrant, and it's all just so unique to each map. It feels like an actual ecosystem separate from each other with tiny overlaps. Like the monsters that can cross, they sort of make sense that they can cross. It's like, oh, this one could be in a jungle and a desert. So it's in the jungle and the desert. But the ecosystems themselves almost feel like characters. In a lot of ways, in Monster Hunter, we get attached to the monsters. Like, you often hear people talk about their favorite monsters. We get attached to the monsters, which is crazy to people from the outside, because obviously, we kill them, but then we talk about them so positively, so lovingly. I think in Monster Hunter World, the maps are sort of the same way. They felt way more alive to me, and I got attached to them like that. Monster Hunter World has the most alive feeling environment that I've seen in the Monster Hunter series. Hell, probably even in a video game as a whole. And honestly, just walking around feels great. So fighting while having all of that going on in the background just enhances the situation dramatically. Even if World doesn't have my favorite combat system in the series, because that's Rise, it still has a great combat system. And while I use that combat system, I get to be in the ecosystems within Monster Hunter World. And that is what is pushing it over the edge for me right now. That is the true beauty of this series to me as well, because I realized my urge to play this game is because of that reason, because I miss this vibrant world. Specifically, if I spend a bit of time here, I'm sure I'll start to miss underwater monsters, or I'll start to miss the wire bug, or I'll pop back into GU again like I do every once in a while. There are so many games with such variety between them. I can't wait to get to the ones that I still haven't played personally. But for now, I am more than happy to follow my whims and jump right back into Monster Hunter World for a little bit. Alright everyone, I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and this has been a little bit of a talk about my own personal nostalgia for Monster Hunter World, and why I think I've been really itching to go back through it recently. What Monster Hunter game do you keep finding yourself going back to? Which one do you think you're going to be booting up next? Like if you like the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies, gents, folks, and cowpokes, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.